All right, 2020 NFL Combine was this past weekend. Started last Thursday, went through yesterday. Several Georgia players invited to the Combine. Several participated, a few did not. Here to talk a little bit about what happened at the Combine, if it changes anything for draft positions in moving forward. So, right off the bat, because quarterbacks were first, the headlines were Jake Fromm's 40-yard dash time. I don't want to get on here and bash Jake Fromm. For those that know me, know how I feel about that whole situation. I like Jake Fromm. I think that the two previous quarterbacks that transferred were better, but I'm not going to go there in this video. Jake was great at UGA. We'll leave it at that. So the NFL Combine is really about showing off your athleticism. It's the 40-yard dash, the vertical jump, the broad jump, the shuttle, 3-cone drill, bench press. It very little to do with football. I mean, it's athletic ability. There's people that have never played football in their lives that could go to the NFL Combine and perform well. Jake Fromm is not one of those people. We didn't really expect much out of Jake Fromm in regards to his 40 time. Most people did not see it going into the 5-second range, though. I think I said 4.94 or 4.96 was what I was giving him. He ran a 5.01. Was his fastest time. Did okay in all of the other events, but not very good. I mean, so comparatively, Jacob Eason, Washington quarterback, former UGA quarterback, beat Jake Fromm in the 40-yard dash. Now, Jacob Eason's like 6'6", and said to be less mobile than Fromm, and Eason had like negative 70 rushing yards every year, but yet he still ran a 4.83, I believe is what his 40 time was. So kind of interesting there, but Jake Fromm did beat Jacob Eason in every other category. So vertical, broad jump, the shuttle, 3-cone drill. Jake Fromm actually beat Jacob Eason in all of those categories. So, you know, I don't think the NFL Combine was helpful or hurtful for Jake Fromm. It definitely did not boost his draft stock. It did not reassure any NFL scouts of who he's going to be in the NFL. I think it literally kept everything exactly the same. He's probably the 4th or 5th quarterback off the board whenever that happens. So, I mean, that could be 2nd round, 3rd round. We'll see. Moving on from Jake Fromm, offensive linemen, again, didn't hurt or help their draft stock. Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson, they performed okay. Not great. Neither one of them helped their draft stock. Andrew Thomas didn't have a bad day, but the problem is at offensive line, the 3 that have been mocked ahead of him, the 3 offensive tackles that have been mocked ahead of him, all had ridiculous days at the Combine. So Wills, Wirfs, Becton, they kind of blew him out of the water, unfortunately. So I think Andrew Thomas probably going to be the fourth offensive tackle taken later in the first round. He's no longer a top 10 pick, more than likely, probably not top 15. He's probably going to come at the back half of the first round. We'll see. Isaiah Wilson, he's going to be a mid to late rounder, third round at the earliest. I could see him going in the fifth or sixth. Solomon Kindley, I don't know if he's injured. Definitely didn't do himself any favors because he was invited to the combine, but he did not participate in anything. So, don't know what was going on there. Definitely hurt his draft stock by not showing up. Hopefully he's ready to go for pro day at UGA and does well there, because that does matter. Same thing with Lawrence Cager. No show. Guessing he's still nursing that ankle injury. He didn't participate. Rodrigo Blankenship, he was there, but he's a kicker, so they don't do the 40 or the vert or bench press or anything like that. I mean, he did some on-field workouts. He did nail a 55-yarder though in the on-field workouts. So, is a kicker going to even get drafted? I don't know. I don't necessarily expect Rodrigo to get drafted, but maybe. J.R. Reed, he was okay. Again, he ran like a 4.55 40. He did well in the broad jump, but again, it was just okay. DeAndre Swift, Brian Harrion. Swift was pretty fast. 4.48 40 was faster than a lot of people thought, considering that both Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were in the 4.5s. So that was good to see. Brian Harrion, though, was a little bit slower than a lot of people thought. He was in the 4.6 range, 4.62, I believe, is what he ran. But he did well in other areas. So again, it was just not a good weekend for Georgia football at the Combine, and I don't want to sound negative or derogatory or anything like that. It was not a good weekend for anybody in a Georgia uniform at the Combine. I went through and looked at a few other teams just real briefly and how they finished in the top 10 or top 15 of each category. And I don't have the stats in front of me, obviously, but Alabama had 3 or 4 people or categories, mostly Henry Ruggs, that finished in the top 10 or top 15 of the category. So the 40, the bench press, the vertical jump, the broad jump. Alabama had 3 or 4 of those. Clemson had like 7 or 8 of them. Isaiah Simmons probably claimed 3 or 4. Michigan had like 5 or 6. Notre Dame had like 5 or 6. Ohio State had 5 or 6. So the trend here is all these other teams. I mean, they've got guys out there at the Combine that were finishing in the top 10, top 15 in these categories, and Georgia had 0. Not a single player from Georgia finished in the top 15 in any category. Overall. Top 15 overall. At their position, no Georgia player finished top 3 in any category. In any position. Charlie Warner, I believe, was the closest for the tight ends because he had 18, I think, on the bench press. He was 4th among tight ends, which there was only like 15 tight ends there. So, nobody in the top 3 at their position. DeAndre Swift was 6th for running backs as far as the 40 time goes. Again, I don't think it necessarily hurt DeAndre Swift. There's a very good chance that he still is the first running back taken in the draft. He's just that good. He did not have a bad combine, and that's what I want to kind of get across here. None of these guys really had a bad combine. Not even as bad as Holyfield did last year running that 4.78. But nobody helped themselves. Nobody had a good day. We didn't have an offensive lineman that ran well or did well on the bench press or anything like that. Again, our running backs, we didn't have running backs finish in the top 5 for their 40. We didn't have a DB in the top 5 for their 40, so on. So we'll see what happens next month. It is March. It's actually sunny again here in Michigan. We'll see what happens next month at the draft. I don't think it really affects any of the players too much, especially because of the pro day that will be coming up sometime in the end of March, I think is when that pro day is. So hopefully, a couple guys, maybe Fromm gets his 40 under 5 seconds. He didn't really do too bad at the throwing on-field workouts. I saw a handful of them, and he underthrew one of the deep balls. He overthrew a couple, but he was fairly consistent. Nothing bad or great again there. So it'll be interesting to see. But I just wish that one of Georgia's players would have breaking out and had a great combine, because again, it seemed like Alabama certainly did with Henry Ruggs, and Clemson certainly did with multiple people. Isaiah Simmons was one. Muse, who's a defensive back, he was another one. Ohio State had a couple with Okudah. So I don't want to keep ranting and raving, but that is kind of my summary of what happened at the NFL Combine over the past 4 days. Not really any headlining news for UGA. I don't think anybody got injured at the Combine, which is good, because that did happen for a couple other guys. So we'll see what happens coming up in the pro day. Hopefully all of the Georgia players, including Jake Fromm, can boost their draft stock and get drafted, obviously, as high as possible. Coronavirus is out there, guys. People are dying left and right, even though not nearly as much as just the regular flu. But I'll digress. Stay safe. Wash your hands. And we'll see you soon.